Avowed is an experience that focuses on presentation, sound and visuals. It is, however, incredibly bad at creating a fantasy of being in another world and role-playing. On the screen you can see 8 experience categories ranked with a score from 1 to 5. A low score, such as the fantasy score, indicates that the game is poor at providing that experience. A high score, such as presentation, means that the game is good at providing that experience. Read the description of the video for an explanation of the system and pause the video if needed. On the surface, Avowed is a first-person, open-world role-playing game with real-time combat. It looks a lot like Elder Scrolls or Dragon Age. But Avowed is not like these games at all. Avowed does not care about immersion. Avowed's combat relies on stats and not on real-time combat. The narrative tells instead of showing and is focused on the player and not the character that the player controls. Avowed is a decent game and may offer enjoyment if you're not pushed away by the game's many flaws and can deal with a couple of deal breakers. The first deal breaker is immersion, which is completely absent in Avowed. The game does not care about it at all. The world is static and dead. There are very few features you can interact with. The people who live in the world are there to play a role for you. The environments are static backgrounds. And I really cannot overstate how bad the immersion is. It does not exist. Avowed offers zero immersion. The second deal breaker is that the real-time combat system that is showcased so heavily in screenshots and videos is not the main combat system. Your character build, which provides stats through perks, attributes and equipment, is the core combat system. If your weapon level is 4 tiers slower than the enemy, your damage will be halved, for example. Your perks give a significant damage boost to a weapon. 3 perk points might increase two-handed weapon damage by 75%, for example. And Avowed does not really give you the freedom to mix and match weapons because you don't have perk points, attributes, or enough money to get good enough weapons to do so. This is a game that wants you to focus on a combat style or two and stick with it for the duration of the game. The perk tree, attributes and equipment are very basic and shallow. The combat system lives and dies by how pretty it is and how good it feels on a visceral level. It offers very little in terms of mechanical depth. The third deal breaker is that the narrative does not fit with the genre. The narrative style is abstract and direct at the same time. The incredibly low levels of immersion means that the world and characters do not feel real. They feel like abstract representations of the world and its characters. These characters talk directly to the player and not the envoy that the player controls. The game will tell you that a character is good or bad, it will rarely show you that through actions or dialogue. A lot of your companions will, for example, function as narrators that narrates the events in front of them. The last major deal breaker is technical issues and performance. Avowed is not very well optimized, but it is functional most of the time. But the game often breaks when new patches or builds are released in my experience. From patches that push the maximum frame rate into single digits to patches that wipe all of your local save files. And assuming that you're fine with everything that I've mentioned here, the game has a fair amount of decent experiences to offer. The best thing about the game is by far how good the combat looks. It looks spectacular and feels amazing to interact with when it works. The magic feels powerful. The melee heavy and with weight. The ranged precise and agile. The feeling of the combat system and how it presents is spot on. The problem is just that this system sits on top of a shallow and poorly balanced progression system. And Avowed is beautiful, if nothing else. The world might be static and dead, but it is a gorgeous dead world. If you are the type of player that can live off beauty, you can get pretty far in Avowed, as long as you don't need immersion to go together with that beauty. The story told in Avowed is overall decent. It is a generic and surface level fantasy story, where the player can choose the evil or good outcome essentially. The writing is decent. In short, the narrative is good enough if you want a lighter story, and don't need depth and complexity in your stories. In summary, Avowed breaks a lot of genre norms and expectations. You need to go with the flow of the game to have a good time. If you are looking for a lighter game in this genre, Avowed certainly has a lot to offer. It has a lot of potential issues and problems, but as a casual game, it is pretty good. Thank you for watching.